Gary Lineker is still dominating the news cycle.
How? I don't get it. I know you're right.
Local boomer thinks we live in Nazi Germany.
Look on British news, and it's just his face
I know.
endlessly.
It's like Gary Lineker's kind of slightly absent-minded expression. It's like I don't even dislike Gary Lineker. I just think he's a product of living in the sort of, the London area. And so he has to deal with people who are also not academically inclined, and so don't do a lot of reading on the subject.
I don't know. I think they're all very academically inclined. Like the
all
most academic people you find in the world are the most ignorant people on earth.
fair, but it takes a lot of work to become that ignorant. I think Gary Lineker's just kind of fallen into it.
Maybe.
Right? He got famous for kicking a ball around. I mean, I don't begrudge him not having read stacks of tomes on racism and where it's come from. I don't blame him, but like now he's just like, yeah, so like, all the refugees are just good, aren't they? It's like, no, we're living in Nazi Germany because people don't like the refugees. No, Gary,
most normie of normie things.
it's not even normie. It's sub-normie. It's
London.
yeah, it's the London. It's the woke London bubble, and it's just Gary Lineker's in it. He's like, oh, I'm being a good person. It's like, are you, Gary? Are you? Anyway, before we go on, I agree with your feminist immigration policy. I've come to the firm conclusion that essentially we shouldn't accept any men at all. Gary Lineker is like, no, I need those fighting age men. Without those fighting age men, for some reason, I can't be a good person.
What are you doing, Gary?
Yeah, exactly. Well, we'll talk about it in a second, actually. So anyway, you may remember that we covered this on Monday, where Gary Lineker had a standoff with the BBC, and the BBC backed down because literally all of the woke friends of Gary Lineker kind of unionized against the BBC. The Spike magazine, I think it was, described it as a putsch at the BBC, a woke putsch at the BBC, which I think is actually a good summary of it. And for some reason, the BBC boss has backed down. It's like, why don't you just fire him? Like, that's what I would do. No, you're out. Go. Bye.
I just didn't get this in terms of money, because apparently all the other hosts of the boring shows were like, we're going to leave if Gary leaves, and it's like, okay,
yeah,
I'll just replace you. There are loads of people who do that.
Yeah, exactly.
You guys are way overpaying. Like, what's Gary on? Was it 1.5 mil?
1.37 or something like that. But yeah, he's the highest paid. Doesn't have to worry about ratings either.
Nobody I know who likes football likes Gary.
No, me either. Because they're all generally more patriotic types who like football.
But even just on a football lens, it's just not interesting. Like, show me the footage.
Sure. And that's probably why the BBC had record ratings for Match of the Day after Gary Lineker wasn't on it. 500,000 up. But this dominated Prime Minister's Question Time. Just Gary Lineker in the Parliament. We're talking about Gary Lineker. Why? What happened? He called us all Nazis. We're not Nazis. Oh, we're going to get rid of him. No, you can't get rid of him. That's cancel culture, says Keir Starmer. Unironically,
everyone is entitled to a government job.
I'm not even joking, actually, right?
Yeah.
Keir Starmer suggested that BBC impartiality has been such a thing. BBC impartiality.
I've not known a time when that has existed.
No, of course not. Right? Obviously, right? But Conservatives are now waging war on free speech because they're like, is Gary Lineker really entitled to be paid by the taxpayer to call the government that the people voted for a Nazi? Is he really? No, if you
the
don't...
founding fathers were like, you know what free speech really means?
Yeah.
Working for the government.
And being able to say anything about the government that you like. This was Keir Starmer's argument. I mean, literally, he said, why doesn't Rishi Sunak take some responsibility and stand up to his snowflake MPs waging war on free speech? Yes, the free speech of multi-millionaires being employed by the government. They're the people whose free speech really matters.
It's like, dude, you could start your own goddamn television channel, probably.
Yeah, undoubtedly.
What have you got?
It's not, people who are actually being censored and sent to jail for things they've said.
But it's not even people who are losing a platform because they've, I don't know, like boycotts from leftists or rightists. No, they're like, you work for the government. You did the deal with the devil. And they're like, what do you mean I can't say what I want?
Yeah.
So we just don't work for the government then.
Why can't I just call the government who employ me a bunch of Nazis? I just don't see the problem. It's like, what, you're saying that they're the villains of World War II? Yeah, I just want to do that.
Which is why I take their money.
And I want you to pay me to do it. And so the BBC were like, yeah, good point. We apologise. We're going to change the social media guidelines just to accommodate you calling us Nazis. That's what happened, right? And so Gary Lineker returned to Twitter and started running his mouth again. So yeah, so that Nazi government that's stopping the poor innocent fighting age refugees, that's bad. It's like, really? Is it bad? Who's bad for who? Not bad for the average Briton. Not that they're Gary Lineker's constituency of concern. But he said, look, if it's been difficult these past few days for me, which they haven't been. You should have seen his smug face wherever he was going on doing interviews, right? It simply doesn't compare to having to flee your home from persecution or war to seek refuge in a land far away. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about fleeing your home from persecution and war very shortly. So Gary Lineker's manager was like, yeah, so that's all fine, because it turns out that Gary Lineker had a special arrangement with the BBC. Apparently he had a special agreement, so Gary Lineker could tweet anything that he wanted about refugees and immigration, and the BBC impartiality guidelines didn't apply to him.
He's entitled to government money, Carl.
He's entitled to his government job where he can violate the impartiality guidelines, and Keir Starmer will be like, well, hang on a second, the BBC isn't being impartial when they punish Gary Lineker for violating the impartiality guidelines. That's the world we live in now, right? And so Conservative MP Jonathan Gullis was like, well, hang on a second. Aren't you basically saying that all of the Northerners who voted for the Conservatives under Boris are a bunch of racists? And Gary Lineker was like, no. Just because you vote for a Nazi party doesn't make you a Nazi. Really, Gary? That's an unfair inference, is it? Unironically, this is what he said, right? Gullis said, it's certainly tough and upset all the right people in the right places when they went after him. When I talk about upsetting people, I'm talking about the Twitterati, the wokerati of North Islington, those champagne socialists who pontificate all day. Those people who I don't care upsetting, because they're the ones who want to call the people up here in the North racists, Nazis, like Gary Lineker has done. Not in so many words, but that is obviously the implication. If you're like, look, this Conservative government that you voted for is a Nazi party, then you're at least sympathetic. And Gary Lineker replied, oh, I haven't and I never would. This is outrageous and dangerously provocative.
Really? It's
outrageous to call... To do this to Gary Lineker.
He's just laughing from a position. He knows he can't be touched.
Exactly. It is so arrogant, right? It's insane. And the idea that, it's dangerously provocative, that I, Gary Lineker, would be accused of calling someone a Nazi right after I called a bunch of you Nazis. Just, all right, whatever. Anyway, speaking of the latest plan by our Nazi government, they're paying the French 500 million to please stop the boats.
Yeah, this is on top of the other hundreds of millions we'd already given.
Yeah.
Sure, it'll work this time.
Yeah, I mean, if you scroll down a bit, right, you get a picture of Macron. There we go. Macron and Rishi Sunak having a nose off.
Thank you.
Who's got the most aggressive nose? It turns out Macron won that. And therefore Macron is going to walk off with all of our money. Rishi Sunak put in a good performance, but...
It's only fair, yeah.
Yeah, couldn't
To be
win.
honest, if that's the way politics works in future, I'm up for it. Would make more sense.
Yeah.
Win.
Nose physiognomy politics. I mean, Rishi's making a good attempt there, but Macron knows he's got this in the bag. You're going to give me all your money, and I'm still going to have the biggest and most hooked nose.
There's going to be politicians breaking their noses.
Yeah, so like you said, we've been doing this for years, and it hasn't worked, but Rishi Sunak's like, hey, what if we give them more money? It's like, that's not going to work. Surprise, surprise. And what's interesting is not only are they going to take our money and not stop the boats, the EU is going to be like, yeah, so they're going to take your money, but we're definitely not going to stop the boats because we are against this. The EU...
Why did you take the money?
Yeah.
Because you gave it to us,
because you're stupid enough to give it to us, exactly, right? No, that's exactly what it is,
this
right?
criminal keeps robbing me. It's just, maybe stop giving him money then.
It's not robbery if you're just handing over the money. Like it's... The European Commission rejected Macron's call for an EU-wide agreement for migrants crossing the channel illegally to be sent back to Europe. They're like, no, they're in Britain now. Britain's out of the EU. Not our problem. So, really, borders matter now, do they? That's incredible. Brussels has no plans to negotiate a migrant return deal with Rishi Sunak. Then why are we giving money? The European Commission is not envisaging an asylum returns agreement with the UK right now. So I mean, at least it's fairly polite. Just no. I mean, that's the sort of polite no we should be doing. Can I move to your country? No. Can we do this? No. That's what we should be doing, actually.
I was thinking about this. So when I was in Serbia, I was explained to me, because the Hungarians actually enforce their borders.
Yes.
And people are confused about how they do this.
Yeah.
Well, it was explained. So what they do, think about this. So there's the border between Hungary and Serbia, right?
Yep.
And then the Hungarians moved basically like 5 meters back and then built their big fence.
Wow.
With a door in it.
Revolutionary.
So what they do, but this is genius because it gets around all international laws, right? You just declare that strip along the border. That's all government property, right?
Yep.
So what you do is when you catch them, because they're trespassing on government property regardless of how they came there.
Yep.
You grab them, you go to the door, and you throw them out the door, but they land in that 5 meters in between Hungary and Serbia that's still there. So then you've not done anything but move them back to where is the public land. Boom. And they've got no option but to turn back to Serbia.
I mean, it's slightly more difficult for us because that's in the ocean.
No. So what we need to do... I mean, think about it.
Oh, wait, Northern Ireland?
No. We don't even need to do that.
Oh, okay.
We could do that, but that's...
Well, that's a border with the EU.
Yeah, so that might be easier than what I'm thinking. But either that...
What were you thinking?
I was thinking, but you catch them in the boats, right? And you can't go back driving them into French waters because that's a violation of international law. So what you do is you just catch them and move them right up to the French water and then just drive away.
Yeah, but the French Navy's like just...
Yeah, and then we just keep shooting them back. They could be there's just a horde of people.
Eventually someone's going to drown. We're going to have to leave them on the border of Northern Ireland.
People already drown.
I know. Moving on.
If it has to end.
So...
But also Northern Ireland, you're right.
If it's not as bad as the French agreeing to take our 500 million and the EU saying, look, we're not doing that. The EU has also come out and said, look, Europe, you need to start deporting your own illegal immigrants. Gary. Europe has been taken over by Nazis, Gary. That's your complaint, isn't it? The EU is currently a Nazi state by your standards. Is it not, Gary? I hate this. I hate this country. I hate the people in it. I hate the people in the news. I hate every member of an institution in this country. I just hate it.
Having a good day, are we?
I'm having a perfectly good day, but this just so annoys me.
Yeah,
you're a bunch of Nazis trying to get rid of these illegal immigrants, and the Europe's. Why can't we just remain? Brexit was an evil project. It's like they're doing exactly what we should do, and we're just too stupid to do it ourselves, right? The European Union urged its member countries to deport more people who enter Europe without authorization and who are not eligible to stay, saying that only around 1 in 5 would-be migrants who should be sent home actually is. So they're like, look. You've got literally 80% of the people who have come here shouldn't be here. Get rid of them. We're only getting rid of 20% of the people who should be deported. It's like, well, I don't want to have to agree with the European Union, but this is the right thing to do. Assholes. Sorry for swearing, but it really drives me mental. Last year, we had a return rate of only 21% of those who are not eligible to stay, says the EU Home Affairs Commissioner Ylva Johansson at the European Parliament.
Before he zeked Heil and marched out of the room.
It's a woman, but yeah, she did, yeah.
Presumably.
Yeah, she goose-stepped out of the room, wearing a Nazi armband.
I do love that meme, though, of like, it's just like the Holocaust. It's all those Jews trying to sneak into Auschwitz.
Yeah.
I mean, that's actually what these people believe.
Yeah, it's actually what Gary Lineker believes, right? But when we fail to return people, this hampers our system and erodes trust. Yeah, as Rishi Sunak has found. And for some reason, we're still letting hundreds of thousands in, right? So, literally, this is just... It just drives me mental, right? To protect the right to apply for asylum, we have to show that we are appropriately dealing with those who do not qualify for international protection. We need migration, but there has to be a legal and orderly way. That's literally all the Conservative government has said. May as well be word for it. They're probably lifting the Conservative government's script. And yet, Gary Lineker isn't like, Nazis have taken over Europe. Then, in our own parliament, we go over to local Labour MP for a very diverse constituency in London. I won't play her speech or anything because she summarises it in that tweet. We need safe and legal routes to the UK. We need the illegal migration bill thrown out of Parliament.
You know we do have safe and legal routes, right? Yeah.
Why would a British person need a safe and legal route to immigrate to the United Kingdom? Well, they don't, obviously. So when she says we...
The international foreigner race.
Yeah. Who is the constituency of we?
I really
why is this occupier in the British Parliament if she doesn't consider herself one of the British?
I really hate this rhetoric, though, because what they're saying, every single one of them does this every day as well. I covered a debate like 3 years ago where they're still saying, well, we don't have safe and legal routes. We do. You can literally list the programs.
Yeah.
Like we have the Syrian Young Vulnerable Scheme that takes in thousands every year, still, somehow, even after all that's happened in Syria.
No war in Syria at the moment.
We have programs with the UN. Like, how do you think North Koreans get here? They're not coming over the channel. Like, no, we call up the UN and say, yeah, we'll take some if you've got some.
Yeah.
And they come.
Yeah. But it's we. I just can't stand this we. There's no we here. I don't know who this person is. No. Anyway, let's have a look at the migrants very quickly, just to remind ourselves. Think of the women and children, says Gary Lineker.
I'm thinking.
Yeah.
That's all I can do.
I can't picture any, That's only. Oh look, no. Look, what I love about this as well, they've got the one child on the dinghy there, right? And so child front and center.
Yeah.
You know. Oh, don't look at all of the other fighting age young men. There's one child on this. Incredible. So it turns out the 9 out of 10 immigrants who crossed the channel in 2021 were male. Obviously,
deport all men.
yeah.
No more male immigration.
Yeah, exactly. Between 18 and 35. Literally all of them. They're adventurers, as you can see by just any picture. If you can just go to the next one, you can see, like, just... Come on. What do we look...
Ukraine on the left, and I think that's Libya on the right over there, which is...
Average Libyan man,
Yeah.
Yeah.
None of them from Libya, but that's a whole other story.
Obviously not.
Yeah.
But as the Times said, in 2021, it's 28,000. So, like, something like 26,000 of those will have been just men.
You know what every society begs for in their immigration policy?
Just random young men from
Yeah, the
the
like
third world.
the most dangerous demographic in every society, which is young men.
Yeah.
Yeah, with no connection to the land. That'll decrease the danger.
Yeah.
On your street next to your kids. It'll be fine.
Well, that's what Gary Lineker thinks, because he actually took in refugees. Everyone's always like, well, Gary, why don't you take some? He's like, he did, actually.
Yep.
Not the average refugees Gary Lineker took, though.
No.
This is weird.
Also had a few more homes than refugees he took, which was strange.
Well, yeah, okay, yeah. I mean, he took 2 refugees, not concurrently. So one, then another, into one of his palatial mansions. That's true. But he told The Sun he could not comprehend people who criticised him for wanting to help people who are being bombed, who are risking their lives jumping on dinghies.
There are no bombs in France.
There are no bombs in France, but even where this person came from, the first one was called Rashid. He was a law student from the Balochistan region of Pakistan.
Yeah, there's no war there.
We're not bombing there.
Yeah. Balochistan independence has long since ended as well.
Right.
There's a fighting conflict. So
But he stayed with Lineker for 20 days while studying law in the UK. Wasn't being bombed, isn't a refugee, and Gary Lineker puts him up. It's like, why? I mean, he's risking his life jumping on a dinghy, I guess, but that's stupid.
but also the journey he would have done. Like he would have had to travel into Iran illegally, and then get through Iran to Turkey.
Yeah.
And then so forth and so forth. Again, just
But then he took another one. Do
was
you want to take a guess the country he took another one from?
he French?
I
Where
mean,
they all seem to come from. So
maybe. No,
he's eating baguettes.
he was from Turkey.
Turkey. Yeah.
Average war-torn country.
I mean, unbearable. And that's why no one goes there on holiday. Actually,
Good
zero
point.
tourism in Turkey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's full of Turks. But yeah, no,
I mean, even at best, let's say he's some Kurd from the region that has like the communist groups, right?
Yeah.
There's the best argument you can make in Turkey. I don't know, he's anti-communist, they tried to kill him or something. Just move to another part of Turkey. Like,
Maybe.
the rest of it is perfectly safe.
But that's not what happened, right?
Right.
So the previous one was 20 years old, was a law student, average refugee.
Yep.
This one is 26 years old, and he wants to become a rocket scientist. He's gone off to
It's
university.
amazing.
Yeah, isn't that incredible?
Is the next one some brain surgeon? And then
Pretty much.
go after him.
What's interesting? He was caught up in a military coup, and had to escape.
Okay. Which part of the caught up was he? Was he in the process of the coup?
Well, that's the point. If you go to the Wikipedia link just quickly, yeah, there's probably a consequence of the 2016 coup d'etat
So
attempt
he-
against Erdogan,
Tried to coup the government, and funnily enough, that's a crime.
and got arrested, and he escaped 18 months of imprisonment. Refugee.
Yeah, I'm sorry, we're not actually at war with Turkey. They're a NATO member, so
No.
we don't support their coups either. So you don't.
Yeah,
even reach
weird.
that.
Weird. We don't support a coup against a NATO member government. It's weird.
It's like if you
Gary
and I
does.
took up arms tomorrow,
Yeah.
bombed Westminster, and then we're like, well, refugees. Yeah, from the law. Like,
Yeah. I mean, there is an argument to be made that the Turkish army engages in coups as part of a kind of quasi-constitutional settlement.
but I don't care.
Yeah, I don't care at all.
Like, I'm sorry. Of course, there are problems with Turkish politics, but they're not a hostile nation. This isn't like anti-communists rising up in China that we might want to help
Yeah.
because we want that to happen. Like, no, they're actually our ally in all this.
Allegedly, anyway.
Yes.
But go back to the article. He says that this 26-year-old man was caught up in the coup. I just love caught up.
Caught up.
He-
I was just caught up while I was, bombing Parliament. I was caught up in
Lineker said that.
frenzy.
Yeah, Lineker said, just average refugee, mate. All right.
I love the idea that like National Front, that's the defence in Parliament. I was caught up in an attempted coup against the British government. I'm a refugee.
The refugee.
That's actually what happened. Do you remember those guys who were caught up in a coup against Gaddafi and then blew up the Manchester Arena?
Oh yeah.
That was the reason they were there.
Yeah, average refugee. Tried to overthrow the government, had to flee for some reason. I'm being persecuted. But
Stabbed the police officer, and that was a crime.
No. But the refugee was a smart kid who wanted to become a rock scientist. He's 26. He's not a kid, Gary. He's an adult man who took part in a coup, failed, and was going to go to prison.
And I don't think they teach spacecraft design in the Turkish military.
Probably not very often.
Yeah.
But now he was with us for about a month and was such a sweet kid and's now gone to university. Great. So there's just that's it.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Great.
So that's Gary.
Glad I'm paying for that.
That's Gary Lineker's. Yeah, that's a good point. He probably gets paid by the government to take these people. But if you can scroll down in this, there's a chart which shows us where this year, this is only from a couple of days ago. Scroll down. There's a chart that shows us where the migrants are coming from. Down a bit, down a bit, down a bit, down a bit more.
That's just the rates. Which
There
are
we
horrific.
go.
Yeah, more people caught up in coups.
What were the odds of him getting a Turk and a Pakistani crossing the channel? Well, pretty low.
Yeah.
He didn't get an Albanian people trafficker. He didn't get an Afghan.
Who totally has no ties to any activities.
Yeah, to anything.
Afternoon entertainment, I think is what they call it.
No one from Afghanistan has ever been involved in anything.
No. The folks fleeing Iraq and Syria. Don't know why.
Iran as well. I mean, I suppose in Iran, maybe you could say that they took part in an uprising, it failed, and they have to flee.
But the Iraqis and the Syrians?
Yeah.
I mean, which people in Iraq and Syria
the
need to flee?
Bangladeshis? What war's going on there? India? Sorry, we're refugees from India? No, you're not.
Have you seen the GDP graph of India?
Well, exactly.
It's a goddamn straight line going up.
Yeah, I'm a refugee from success.
Yeah.
But anyway, the point
Sudan's
is...
also not at war.
No.
South Sudan is, but they're not.
Yep.
So-
Pakistan isn't at war. Is Eritrea at war? Might be a civil war, I suppose.
Their situation's a mess.
Yeah, but... Yeah, okay, fair. But like...
But even then, you'd stop somewhere in Egypt, which is not a war.
Yeah, but the average person coming across the boats is not a Turk or a Pakistani man.
Nah.
Not Turkish or Pakistani students.
It's an Albanian coup enjoyer, I'm sure.
It's an Albanian drug enjoyer, probably.
How many of these people from Kosovo is the question I've always got in my mind.
Yeah, and so anyway, Migration Watch have done quite a nice little summary of all of this. It's like, while Gary Lineker has very safe migrants living with him, the rest of us have to deal with not so safe migrants, such as Lawan, Geen, Aboriginal Mazami or something. The guy,
foreigner over here.
the guy who murdered Royal Marine Thomas Roberts in Bournemouth. There was the one we covered the other day about the guy stabbing him in the back.
I think he also murdered a guy in Serbia.
He murdered 2 people in Serbia, actually.
Huh.
He claimed to the UK authorities he was 14, despite being 18 at the time, which led to him being placed in schools. So it's like, right, so you've got this adult murderer just sat next to these kids, and oh, look at that, he went on to murder someone else.
Gary, you got any room?
Got anything to say about any of this, Gary? No, he was fleeing being bombed.
Well, by his own bomb, maybe. I don't...
Exactly. Yeah, maybe it's a 4-line situation. Good point, Gary. Yeah.
I'm fleeing war.
Yeah.
I may have caused it, but...
But then you've got, of course, the asylum fraud.
Yeah, that's actually true of Shamina Begum. And all the other ISIS fighters. They're like, we're fleeing war. I mean, we were the ones who did the war.
Yeah, our war. Then you've got the guy who blew himself up outside of Liverpool Hospital in 2021.
Fleeing his own bombs.
He didn't even flee his own bomb, actually.
Hugged his own bomb
couldn't
again.
blow up the cathedral, so he's like, well, I'll blow up the hospital instead. It's like, good. That was in November 2021. Then you have the murder of 32-year-old Lorraine Cox in Exeter in September 2020 by a failed asylum claimant. Sudanese asylum seeker called Badreddin I can't say these names. Stabbed 6 people in Glasgow in 2020 in the hotel rampage.
He was fleeing knife crime.
I mean, he was when they caught him,
This
yeah.
is what I'm going to phrase it as from now on.
In June 2020, there was a brutal triple stabbing in Reading. You remember that one? By
More knife crime to be fled.
a Libyan asylum seeker. Homophobic knife crime. incidentally. There was the horrific murder of 7-year-old Emily Jones in Bolton by a failed asylum seeker in March 2020. The Afghan asylum seeker tried to murder a complete stranger in Thornton Heath in London, fueled by a desire to kill English people.
Fleeing racism.
I don't mean to laugh.
He was fleeing racism from the scene of crime.
I don't mean to laugh, but it's just the only thing you can do in the face of all of this.
Like, we don't have any power to change this.
Yeah, exactly. If I had power to change this, oh my God, I would be it would be done within the day. Trust me. And the thing is, they go on. I'm not going to carry on because you get the point. There are lots of dangers. And I should have got the crime increase, actually. I did have it up, but I forgot to put it in.
I think this is a correct statistic. I think it's about, because we calculated, 25% of all terrorist incidents that were successful in the last 10 years have been asylum seekers.
Yeah.
Despite making up 0.1% of the population, 25% of the terrorism.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So anyway, Gary Lineker. Kind of sick of him, to be honest.
If you appreciated that segment from the podcast The Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the contents on the site, such as the articles on there, this one on If You Love Someone, Let Them Know. And if you'd like to find out what else is being put out, follow on Getter at lotuseaters_com on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.